Good afternoon. Thank you all for coming and being a part of our presentation today. I'm George Fair. I'm the Dean of the School of Disciplinary Studies and the Vice President for Diversity and Community Engagement. And we welcome you here as a part of one of the activities of the Office of Diversity and Community Engagement. Our office focuses on the UT Dallas goal to be, without exception, a welcoming, inclusive, and discrimination-free community where each person is respected and treated with dignity. The Office of Diversity and Community Engagement has 4 major offices, and the one that this presentation is sponsored by is Institutional Diversity Initiatives. The Department of Institutional Diversity Initiatives supports and enhances the communication infrastructure of the Office of Diversity and Community Engagement, and through its lecture series, scholarship funds, councils, and annual recognition ceremonies, works to create a heightened awareness of the various roles that stakeholders play in creating and supporting a diverse UT Dallas environment. The Gender Center is another one of our offices, and the Gender Center serves as a campus resource that fosters a safe and inclusive environment by advocating for gender equality, gender equity, and diversity through leadership development, education, programs, and services. The Department of Community Engagement focuses on fostering a collaborative partnerships with various school districts, community colleges, community organizations, and area businesses to increase student diversity at UT Dallas and to increase the visibility of the university among underrepresented minority populations in the region. And lastly, we have the Multicultural Center, which is committed to providing a variety of quality cultural programs, educational resources, leadership opportunities, and support services that enhance the ability of UT Dallas students to achieve success in their academic, personal, and work lives. The university has recently appointed a new committee that's going to be working with this, that's relevant to the topic of our presentation today. A presidential committee that's named the Campus Accessibility Committee. The committee has 3 interrelated concerns. 1 is the accessibility of campus facilities. 2 is the accessibility of university programs and services. And 3 is long-range plans to incorporate universal design principles into university programs and operations. So we are continuing to try to focus on making this campus as accessible and as welcoming to all students as much as possible. I want to say thank you to Raytheon, who has helped sponsor this event for the last 4 years. As the program develops, you'll see some members from several representatives from Raytheon that will be a part of this program. Please welcome Paul Watson, who will be our Master of Ceremony. Paul Watson retired as the Director of Purchasing from UT Dallas in 2016. Watson is one of the original volunteers for My Possibilities and was able to get several donations of services and materials for the remodeling of the center. He personally spent hundreds of hours painting, repairing walls, and other labor activities at the center. Paul is a parent of a daughter with autism who is affiliated with My Possibilities. Paul, please come forward.
Good afternoon. I see everybody made it through the rain. Congratulations on being here. Myself, I feel happy that I found a parking spot and I probably will not be towed away, so I was very excited about that. My name is Paul Watson. I have been retired for a couple of years from UTD, but I did work here for 23 years, and actually one of the few students that graduated here is one of the first undergraduate classes in 1979, and as you can imagine, things have changed a little bit since those days. We are having some changes. We've got a couple of people that are either coming late or some that haven't made it yet. But I wanted to just thank everybody for coming here today This is a pretty important topic to my heart. You know, I have a daughter with autism who's 32 years old, and My Possibilities, which you heard the name, is an organization that's near and dear to my heart. In fact, we're on former UTD land just on the other side of George Bush Tollway, and basically we've built a center for continuing education for adults with disabilities where they don't have other opportunities to do continuous learning. And we decided to build what we called a college-style campus. So we're one of the best run organizations in the area that we found. And we just recently merged with an organization called Launchabilities, whose main intent is employment. So again, that's very important to our hearts, that we would like to see a lot of improvement in the ability and accessibility for people with disabilities to become employed in some fashion or other. So our first speaker today, I guess it's going to be you. Trying to find you on the handout here. Hello. There we go. Kristy. Kristy was born and raised in upstate New York. We won't hold that against her. She was born with a brain injury that resulted in a form of cerebral palsy. And in her early years, her learning disabilities were realized, and she was given a label that a lot of people unfortunately get at a young age, that she was dumb. But her learning disabilities, later in life, she was able to overcome those. And she has currently, says 26 disorders and counting. Disorders that provide both challenges and gifts, depending on how she's able to foster and develop those skills. Kristy struggled throughout childhood and young adult years, both physically, intellectually, and emotionally. But the story of how she became a successful engineering manager at Raytheon is very inspiring. And so without further ado, Kristy, if you could come up and give your story. Thank you very much.
So you're not going to be able to see my slides, and I apologize for that. I didn't realize that. So I'll talk a little bit about myself first. Again, I was born in upstate New York. I grew up on a dairy farm, and at the beginning, there was, you know, like my parents brought me home after a long stint at the hospital, and they were like, okay, well, she's a preemie, she's, you know, small, I was like yellow, you know, there are small things, and the cord was wrapped around my neck, and so they knew there was going to be some problems, but they didn't know what kind. And so my aunt noticed a wandering eye. She noticed a couple of things, and she was like, "You really, really need to get a second opinion because the doctors aren't really helping her." And shortly thereafter, they got a second opinion. They found out that, you know, they diagnosed me with cerebral palsy, but cerebral palsy is kind of like this giant disorder. And so cerebral palsy means a lot of things to a lot of different people. And so they were like, okay, she'll probably need a wheelchair, she'll need canes, she'll need all these things. And so what happened was, I was 3 years old, I was in a cast, and I would not lay down. Like, they had to recast me. They had to do everything. And so they were like, this kid won't, like, I mean, I basically scooted on my butt everywhere I went. And so they finally were like, okay, this girl's got grit. She's got grit, she's 3 years old, and she will not stop. And so after a couple years, they realized that I wouldn't take no for an answer. You tell me I can't do it, I'll tell you that I can. And I'm gonna do it this way. I'm not gonna do it the way you told me to do it. I'm gonna do it a different way, and I'm gonna do it better. And so basically, you know, I go to school, and they say, you can't take a foreign language. And I'm like, really? I'm gonna do Spanish and French just to piss you off. So that's kind of the basis of who I am, is a combination of things where people said, you know what, Kristy, you can't do it. And I say, you know what, but I can, and I can do it better. You just don't know how I can do it. So that's kind of how I got into engineering, because engineering is this big discipline that says, you know what, you need to design it, you need to be able to build it, and you need to break it, right? So that's how I decided engineering was for me, right? Because I broke it, I rebuilt it, I designed it, and I designed me. So if I can design me, then I can design anything. So if that resonates at all with you, and you're going through college and you're saying, okay, what am I gonna do with my life? What am I gonna do? If I'm being told I can't do it, how am I gonna do it better than someone that doesn't have those same challenges? And my thing is when you're in school, you wanna form partnerships. You wanna find the people that resonate with you. Whether you're in high school, college, or in a career, make sure that you start finding those people that make you proud of who you are. The people that make you feel sorry for yourself or validate that you should be feeling sorry for yourself, leave them. Don't keep them there. Because what you want to do is start a profile and add the folks to LinkedIn and add them and embrace all of those things that make you you. Because eventually you're gonna have this great LinkedIn site that basically you can go on there and be like, hey, this is me. Not the bad stuff, this is me. I'm the good stuff, this is what's me. And you can always go back to it and see what you've accomplished. You can see what other people have seen, and it also helps your career, right? So, and when you're looking for a job, you're gonna always want a cover letter. And the reason why you want a cover letter is because that's where you get to say, this is why you wanna hire me. Yes, these are all the things that I have, a resume, right? I got a high school diploma, I've got a college degree. You know, this is what I can do, right? But the cover letter tells you why and how you got there. So my first cover letter that Raytheon decided to choose me was, hey, I grew up on a dairy farm, you know, hard worker, right? And not only that, I went through high school and I took 2 foreign languages when I was told I couldn't do it. I put in there that they told me I couldn't graduate from high school. I told them that I went to school and I had grand mal seizures. And even though I had grand mal seizures, I graduated with an engineering degree in 4 years, and it was supposed to be a 5-year program. That was in my cover letter. It was bold, it was a risk, but that's what was in my cover letter. My cover letter today doesn't have much of that at all. It's more, hey, this is what I do at Raytheon. I'm in these programs. I'm part of the ERG. I'm part of Diversity In. I'm part of NOD. It basically tells them that I'm involved in the community and I am proud of being a person with a disability. I am proud, because if I'm not proud of who I am, who do I expect to be proud of me, right? So make sure that that is all in your cover letter, because your resume is just facts and data, right? You're gonna put your facts, you're gonna put your data, and that's where it stands. The cover letter is who you are and who you're proud to be. Okay, so now that you have everything completed and you send it to 1,000 people, right? And you talk about the talent acquisitions post and say, hey, you know, hire me, right? What you want to do is take advantage of those relationships that you did on the LinkedIn, and you have internships. You take advantage of them and you say, hey, how did you get started? What did you do? Tell me what you did. Ask them how you can solve problems for them, because they want to hear how you can solve their problems, not how they can solve yours. How can you help them solve their problems? So phrase it like that. Use your career advisors. Make sure that your career advisors know that you are going to keep coming back. You have grit, and you're going to be persistent. If you have to come to their office every single day, that's what's going to happen. And if you say you're going to come back every single day, then you got to do it. If you say you're going to do it once a week, then you got to do it. You got to commit. You got to commit. If you say you're going to do it and then you don't, they're going to see it. They will know, and they will not start trusting you again. You got to commit to it. And then find a mentor, someone outside of your discipline. So if you're in engineering, find someone in comms, find someone in operations, find someone completely different than yourself, because you will learn something more about you than you even know what is there. You'll find depth, and if you're in finance, talk to someone in engineering, ask them, why do you keep on going overspent? Like, what's going on? Why do you keep over-engineering something? What? Tell me. Explain to me, right? Get those tough questions, because then you'll have depth in your resume. Ask those tough questions and get to know that mentor and find out what made them decide to go into finance or engineering or operations. Find that out. Try to make it about them first so that they will invest in you. Okay? And then they'll also do reverse mentoring too. That's what normally happens when you invest in them first. And then normally a SWOT analysis is on a business, but if you have a disability, you are a business, right? You have to get up every day. You don't put your pants on the same way as everybody else. Sorry. You just don't. Just the way it is. But you are your own business. You get up every day. You do something different. You're not the same person as everybody else. Everybody is unique, but you're just special. And you need to be treated special, and you need to demand that you are treated special. And so you need to understand your strengths, your weaknesses, your opportunities, and your threats. And a lot of times those threats are, you're not disabled enough, right? Right? Or, you overcame that disability, so it's no longer a disability. It's no longer there, right? Like, you were depressed like 5 years ago, but you're not depressed anymore. So that doesn't apply. So don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. That kind of stuff doesn't go away. You've overcome it, but that doesn't mean it's not there. It means that you're stronger because of it. So make sure you don't just take it off your threats list just because you overcame it. Embrace it. Put it down as an opportunity that you are going to continue to overcome that depression, right? That's an opportunity every single day. Heck, my opportunity is to take my medication every day so I won't have a seizure. Like, that's an opportunity. Yay, I took my medication today. I've got to take it 3 times a day. I celebrate 3 times a day. There's a clapping going on. There's sunflowers every single day, 3 times a day, and it doesn't get old. Because if I don't take it, I die. That's reality for me. So if I start getting, old hat for taking my medication, then that's when I realize that there's a problem, and I need to address it. Because that's a really important thing, and so never get tired of celebrating who you are. Never get tired of it. And don't let anybody tell you otherwise. Because if they are, then you need to find a different person. You need to find a person that's going to make you feel good about celebrating. Celebrate you. And so I'm going to go back to grit. I read the book Grit. I don't know if everybody's read it. That's not grit. I'm sorry. I read it and I was like, yeah, that's hard work. That was hard work. Grit is when you normally can't get out of bed. And you're like, you know what? I got to get out of bed. You got to convince yourself that you got to get out of bed. That's what grit is. is the bottom of the barrel. You think you're done. But you know what? The best thing, especially if you're looking for a career and you're trying to find, going from career, or from college to career, is when you don't know what's going to happen in front of you and you have to go and find it. You've got to find that piece that you don't think you have. Make sure that you recognize that you know that you can do it, but you might need help. You may not be able to do it on your own, but you're strong enough to go and ask. You're strong enough to go and find that person that's mentoring you and ask. Ask those tough questions. Don't try to do it alone, especially if you think that maybe you'll fail because of trying to do it yourself. So there's a lot of barriers and there's a lot of questions. When I was in college, I was like, well, you know what do I say? Like, you're not supposed to really talk about your disability in an interview, and they're not really supposed to ask. So what do you say? Especially, it's like, hey, my name's Kristy, and I'm shaking you with my left hand. Or better yet, I'm shaking you with my fist. Right? What do you say when they look at you like awkward? Like, what do you say? Are you going to bomb your interview? Or are you going to laugh about it? Bomb, laugh, bomb, laugh. Like the first couple, I bombed. I was like, oh my goodness, like, I mean, one of them I left. I didn't even finish my interview. I couldn't handle it. I was like, no, I can't live in this environment. No, I'm done, right? But learn from my mistakes. Don't bomb your interview because someone like embarrassed you in it. Laugh about it. Tell them, hey, you know what? I need to start over because that was, what happened there? Call them out. Say, look, you know, that made me uncomfortable. I need to start over. I need a minute. Maybe we can introduce each other again. Let them know that you felt uncomfortable. Tell them that that there was a moment of uncomfortableness. Don't just wait for it. Or leave the interview and then have the questions in the back of your head like, did I bomb? What do I do with that? Learn from it. So will my disability contribute negatively to my professional development? So when I first started my career, I didn't disclose it all. I was like, you know what? I'm going to pretend. Pretend I don't have a disability. Pretend. Yeah, they didn't last long. Someone was like, hey, so do you have carpal tunnel? When did you start carpal tunnel? Like, you're kind of young for carpal tunnel. I called Daddy. It's like, hey, Daddy, someone thought I had carpal tunnel at work. That conversation didn't go well. Daddy was like, what do you mean? Didn't you tell them that you had cerebral palsy? Are you not happy? Are you not proud of who you are? I mean, I didn't raise you to just ignore what you had. Yeah. I went to work the next day and I told everybody that I had cerebral palsy. Most people felt stupid. And then it was awkward because, what else aren't you telling me? Right? So then, I was like, well, I have epilepsy too. So if there's a fire drill, you kind of want to get out of my way because I don't want to have a seizure on the way down the stairs, right? So, I was working for like months before I let them know that I had cerebral palsy and epilepsy, right? That wasn't necessarily the best decision. It was a personal decision, but once I disclosed, people felt more comfortable like asking questions. Heck, some people were like, wait a minute, you know what? I have this too, and I want to talk about it, right? It kind of opened up the doors. And then the other question too is when you interview someone and you don't know if they're ready for me, like I had a couple interviews besides Raytheon, and I looked at their profile on their computer, and I was like, I don't think they're ready for me. They're not ready for someone like me. They don't have the bandwidth to have someone as bold or someone that is has those outdoor, outside thought process. They're looking for someone very rigid. This is not the kind of environment for me. So I had to go find another environment. Sometimes it has to do with benefits, right? I looked at some companies and I'm just like, yeah, no. The benefits are not gonna help me live my life and be all I can be because their benefit packages don't help me. So that's something that you're really gonna have to look at when you're going from, college to career. Look at their, if you have to take medication, right? You gotta look at that. You gotta look to see if their medication is even part of the plan. So make sure to do your research on the companies that you're looking for. It's a really big part of going from career to work. College to work. And it wasn't something that I knew about, and it wasn't something I learned in college because, I don't know, there wasn't a course at that time. Maybe there is now, but there wasn't for me because I was specialized, right? My medication is a specialized drug. And I looked into it, and there weren't a lot of companies that had advanced benefits. Raytheon's one of them. Go Raytheon. But so there's things like that that you wanna look at. The other things, like for culture, you're gonna wanna know, hey, do they have an ERG? Do they have a support system? Do they have a safe space system? A lot of companies, colleges have what's called safe space. Well, what about colleges? Companies, do they have a safe space? Do they have a dress code? What do they have to do? What does our competitors do? It's important to know that before coming in, and it's important to ask when you're in an interview. Like your office setup, right? So at college, you can go in all kinds of different places to do your work. You have your office space. But what about your work? When you interview, do you ask? Absolutely, you ask. You want to know. If I have ADHD and you're going to put me in an open space environment and you don't ask in your interview like what the office space is like, that would be eye-opening on your first day at work, right? Or if you have PTSD and there's a ton of doors that like open and close and people slam them all the time, are you going to feel safe at work? Probably not. So you're going to want to research that, especially in your interview. You can ask the people and just be open about it. Say, look, I'm going to need some accommodations, and I need to understand and I need to feel safe at work. Employers are going to answer those questions. And yes, it might be a little bit hard to do. Sometimes it's better to write it down and give it to the talent folks and say, hey, I have some questions and I don't want to have to ask these during my interview. Can you please have the hiring manager answer them or have them ready for me when I go in? And that's what I did when I transferred from one Raytheon to another business area. It was very helpful. Salary. It's always good to know, what do you feel comfortable with? What is your worth? How do you want to do that? That's another thing that a lot of folks don't even think about, and then they're surprised when they get in, right? Do your research. And then know that it's not about us or them, right? Just because you have a disability does not mean it's not about them too. We're all together. It's no longer about us and them. We're in it together. Everybody should be treated like a person. And again, mentorship is critical. And for me, I found a mentor that had a disability and one that did not have a disability, and it was intentional because I wanted to know how to really help me understand the environment that I worked in. How is that actually going to impact my job, my day-to-day job? And then gain advocacy and the folks that come up to you and and just write you off, don't take that, take that opportunity to teach them something, right? Like, because if they're treating you that way, then they're going to treat someone else that way too. So if you're strong enough and you're a self-advocate for yourself, then take that opportunity to help them and teach them something, because you don't want someone else to be treated that way. And then one thing that I always tell everybody about taking action, in college you get grades, right? You get graded on everything. In industry, you don't really get graded with A, B, C's, right? You'll get, hey, you did a good job, or hey, we're gonna need someone else to look over your work, or things like that, right? It's better to fail quickly and get back up than try to hide it because you may not know what everything that you're doing, right? Ask the questions and learn how to go from plan A to plan B to plan C quickly. Raise your hand and say, hey, I need help. Don't just assume that you're going to be graded and that they're going to go on and take another test, because basically you get graded on the same stuff over and over and over again in industry, right? This is no longer grades. This is the real world. So learn how to fail and get up and learn how to go from plan A to plan B to plan C. And know that that is a unique skill. That is something that most people can't do. So if you can master the art of failing, then I can guarantee you are going to be invaluable to your employer. Get up every day, go to work every day, work hard every day, and know how to fail gracefully. That is how I have been able to work at Raytheon for 15 years. I know that's a long time. But know that failing is not, knowing how to fail is way better than failing and not being able to get up and do it again. So your career is your own. You can ask your manager, you can ask your mentor to help you, but if you're not invested in your own career, no one's going to be invested for you. So if you look at your profile and you're like, you know what, I want to get promoted, find out what it takes to be promoted. Don't just wait for someone to do it. Don't just wait to apply and then not get that job. You have to do the work to get it. Know that you have to set goals, and they have to be continuous goals, because if you're going to just sit there and do the same job over and over again and then say, hey, I've been here for 5 years, I should be promoted, I deserve to be promoted because I've been here for 5 years, I haven't seen that happen. That's not how it works. What works is that you set goals, you increase your knowledge, you are diligent, you're persistent, you show up, and you do more than the next person. But you have to actually document it and show that you're doing it. If you're doing it behind the wall and you don't tell anybody, it's as if you didn't do it at all. And you did it, right? And sometimes it's like you think, oh, well, everybody's going to figure it out. Everybody's going to figure it out, right? Everybody's going to know that I did it. Well, maybe. Maybe they will. But most likely, it's going to be like, oh, well, she's going to do it whether you promote her or not, or promote him or not. That's what you have to do is show it, highlight it, be that advocate for yourself. Be strategic, plan out your career, and you can have multiple plans. You don't have to have a one plan. You can have, hey, if I go down this path, then I can do this. Or if I go down this path, I can do that. But don't assume that one path is the only path. Be strategic and tell people what you want. And breathe. Gotta breathe. You gotta breathe through it. Because if all you're doing is running and you don't take a breath and you don't analyze like the things that you've done before behind you, then you don't have time to reflect on what you've done and learn from what you did. Because there's always areas of improvement, and there's always time for you to ask someone for, hey, how would you have done this better? And constructive criticism and non-constructive criticism is crucial. When someone gives you criticism that is not constructive, it is invaluable, because you being able to determine how not to do it is fantastic. But taking emotion to someone giving you non-constructive criticism and taking that passion and putting it in a negative way is easy to do. What's hard to do is taking non-constructive criticism and putting it in a positive light. That is something that takes time to do. And if you don't do it well today, work on it. You might be able to do it in a couple years, or ask someone for, like, hey, I got really emotional in that meeting. I don't know how to handle it. Help me. Tell me how to do that, because I haven't learned yet, right? So I don't have the ability to do the video. Can we hook it up somewhere else? Okay. It's in this PowerPoint. Okay, sorry. There's a video about us and them, and it's very, it resonated with me. And so I would really like to have everybody see it. Yeah. So the video talks about, stop thinking about us and them. Everybody needs assistance. Everybody needs to be more productive. In today's world, it's about productivity. And so everybody could be more productive. You already know how to be productive or more productive because you find a different way to do it. So because you have those skills, a lot of times you don't give yourself enough credit that you're going to learn a lot faster because you've done it before, right? So remember that. Remember that you've had to live with this all your life, and so you're ahead of the game. Yep, this is it.
Imagine if everyone in your life who has a disability suddenly just disappeared. Oops, there go the 10% dyslexic, the 13% hearing impaired, the 10% with sight loss, diabetes, arthritis, learning disabilities, depression, facial disfigurement, dementia and stroke, asthma, speech impairment, wheelchair users, multiple sclerosis, migraines, anxiety, sickle cell, syndrome, amputation, brain damage, cerebral palsy, RSI, epilepsy, muscular dystrophy. Before we know it, there'd be no one left. There are more than 1 billion people with disabilities worldwide, and the number is growing. Yet how many of us, when we hear this word disability, automatically click to the old assumptions. Nothing to do with me. It's just a few wheelchair users, blind people, dogs. Doctors and charities take care of them. When actually the experience of disability, the unfairness and disadvantage that it brings, is very much about me. In fact, about all of us. About our experience as we go through life, and about getting older, which most of us would like to do. Actually, we all know human perfection is rare. Why bother with the Olympics if everyone can do a 3-minute mile? The real problem is our sad tendency to make assumptions about each other on the basis of labels. How we ourselves expect to be treated is changing as we recognize that we all have a basic right to respect, dignity, and choice. We need to replace the unacceptable old focus on medical labels with the new focus on individual potential, dignity, and human rights. The old brain makes assumptions. Everyone just knows that blind people can't use the internet. The new brain asks, how could this talented blind researcher do this job if we were clever? Simply put, impairment is what happens to you. Disability is what we do to you. Refuse the ramp. Refuse flexi-time. Insist you apply online even though the technology won't let you. Refuse to let you use a different keyboard. Assume you are just not worth the bother. That old click comes through especially loud and clear when you hear the traditional challenge. So what is the business case for hiring disabled people? But just think, nobody asks, what is the business case for hiring, say, Canadians? Everyone knows some can do the job, some can't, some have the talent, some don't, some need adjustments, some do not. We don't generalize about 35 million people labeled Canadians. Why on earth do we still generalize about more than 1 billion people labeled disabled? And yes, I am Canadian. And listen hard to the disabled graduate's new brain reaction. Why do you need a business case for treating me properly? Business Disability International wants to start a brand new conversation which drives a global revolution as disabled and not yet disabled come together to ask, how do we replace the old brain with the new? And in case you're wondering who this Canadian is, I'm Susan Scott Parker, Chief Executive of Business Disability International.
Okay, so that is what really resonates with me is we need to treat people like people, right? Everybody should be able to work, everybody should be productive, and you gotta ask. If you don't ask, you won't get. And so, yes, sometimes it's uncomfortable, sometimes they're not even gonna understand what you're asking for, but that's why you have the mentors, that's why you have the folks that are allies for you and advocates for you. So use that and make sure that you stand up for yourself and if you don't know what you need, because sometimes I don't even know what I need. I just know that something's not working and I need help, but I don't know how I need help. That's okay too. The thing is standing up and asking and raising your hand will not just help you, but it will help the company and it will help others because everybody will most likely be able to benefit for the accommodation or the productivity thing that you have. I mean, look at folks that use live captioning, right? Who actually needed that to begin with, right? It was the hard of hearing. But I don't know about you, I love it, right? I'm dyslexic. It's very hard for me to be able to read with my learning disabilities. I got way better at reading just because I refused to turn on the sound, and I forced myself to read the live captioning instead, and I had to use my imagination on the folks' voices, right? So not only did I learn how to read better, I also had to use my imagination on voice recognition and human behavior, right? So now I'm in meetings and I'm like, okay, well, what do I think that person's trying to convey based on their human behavior, right? That helped me. But I'm not hard of hearing, but it gave me productivities, right? So if you need something because you're hard of hearing or because you're dyslexic. Someone else that may not have the same condition might get better at something that you don't even know about. And it helps the company, it helps society, and it helps the world. So just remember that when you're asking for something, someone else might need it too. You're just brave enough to ask. So I don't know if we take questions or do we do that at the end? I don't know how this works. I mean, does anybody have a question?
So did any company ask about coming day you before the interview?
So I put it in my cover letter. So they did ask me what my cover letter meant with regards to cerebral palsy, right? Because cerebral palsy is a big group. Like, are you gonna come in a wheelchair, right? Or are you gonna need, are you gonna need assistance, right? So they didn't know what to expect at the time, and I did state that I had epilepsy too. So they asked, hey, is there, what do we expect? So they actually, I was working for RTSC at the time, it's now IIS, and they asked if they needed to do some kind of first aid for the people that were going to be interviewing me, just in case if there was a seizure, right? Sometimes it might be good to tell them in advance if you know that you are in danger of having something while you're there. And sometimes I know, because I have Asperger's as well, and I took extreme therapy on trying to have eye contact. But if I had a seizure like the week before, it ain't gonna happen, right? Because my brain and my training and all that just kind of went out the window. So so sometimes if the interview was enough in advance, I would have to call them again and say, hey, I know I told you I didn't need this, but I had a seizure and it kind of changed my, how I interpret things. And I mean, there was a company that may not have hired me because of it, but after reflecting on that, did I really want to work for a company that wasn't going to accept me for who I am? Right? So there's enough companies out there, and the environment is really rich for people that that want a job, that right now, that is not the environment that I would worry too much about. Find the company that's going to fit you. Now, 5 years from now, if the environment's different on hiring, then we would have a different conversation. Elton.
Okay, so I get to ask a question. And it's kind of unfair because I work with Kristy. But before I ask my question, if we could give her a round of applause, I think what she shared is fantastic.
Thanks.
The one thing that I would like to add is that in terms of her, she's a trailblazer, right? As you can see in Raytheon, we're blessed to have her. Kristy, you spent some time kind of sharing with us about your journey thus far. If we could, let's look into the crystal ball, right? And let's talk about your future, right? Let's talk about what you dream about now. Let's talk about some of your aspirations going forward.
Okay, so I went from being a mechanical engineer to more management pretty straight out of the gate. And I've been kind of doing program management and engineering leadership. So my next thing is to go back into core engineering and mentoring and going back to that core, and then going into program management. And I don't plan on retiring until I'm 72, okay? That's gonna happen. So I intend to end up being more of it as a VP, and probably more in the realm of talent acquisitions. Woo-woo! And the reason why I want to go down that road is because my physical disability does not allow me, well, it allows me, I'm like one of the best solderers that you can find. Like, I mean, I can do it, right? It's not gonna look the same as someone else. And you're gonna, I mean, it's very entertaining. It's entertaining for me to watch myself. So for me, I'm better at helping someone else do it, right? Be the person using their hands and accomplishing it. I'm really good at looking at a Creo model, a 3D model, and being like, hey, you know what? If your model's like a pound overweight, maybe if you do this, this, and this, your CG will be in the right location. And they're like, oh my goodness, I didn't think about that, right? So I'm really good at challenging the engineers to do what they need to do. I'm really good at helping them figure out what they want to do on their next steps. I'm really good at that aspect. So I'm going to embrace that great thing. And I'm really good at seeing the front end of the business, the back end of the business. So I know that I'm going to be great at program management. But right now, my next step is more engineering focused, IPT lead, then going into program management, being a senior leader, and then being a VP. But I have a few years. 72 is a little farther away. 72 is my favorite number, so. It was 14 and 72, and kind of already past 14.
How many interviews did you have? Oh, I'm sorry. No, wait, go. How many interviews did you have before you made your first job?
So out of college, I had 5 interviews. And so Raytheon was the 3rd, and they created a position for me after they decided to take someone else. And I took 2 other job interviews. And then I moved all the way to California. I grew up in upstate New York, remember? I moved all the way to California, started my job, and 2 more people called to take me back. So one of them was in the Midwest, and the other one was back home. And so Daddy was like, work for, 3 to 5 years, right? And then find something different, then find something different. Yeah, 15 years later, right? And I mean, part of it I know is because of my condition. I have OCD, obsessive compulsive disorder. Love Raytheon. I bleed Raytheon red. Like, if you say anything negative about it, I'll tell you why you're wrong, right? It is a fantastic company to work for. I can't say enough about it. They chose me. I had a GPA of 2.4. I had a seizure every week. They picked me. So if they picked me, by golly, I'm going to pick them, right? I mean, you may not have the same situation as I am, but I'm just telling you my story.
You got a question? Okay, go ahead.
I was wondering, the way you put things I've never heard before, but I'm a vet from '88, and I'm 100% disabled, PTSD. I've always hid that, and I didn't know that it was something you don't have to cover up and hide, because I didn't want to be treated different or weird or like something's wrong with me.
So I'm sorry that the environment has made it seem that that's how it is. I find that being having PTSD, I have PTSD for different reasons, not because I'm a vet. But I find that having PTSD makes me stronger. I'm able
Yeah.
to solve things way better than others. I'm a problem solver. I put it on my resume, I make it a strength, and I tell people, like, you know what? I'm gonna need accommodations because I have PTSD, right? So I'm not gonna be able to do certain things because of it. But this is what I can do, and this is what I can do for your company because of it. And that's how I kind of phrase the problem, or not the problem, that's how I phrase me, right?
So how do you turn it around to where you're not getting special treatment or expected to have limited income and you can't do this and you can't do that?
But you are unique. That's the thing. That's the great part, right? So I do expect I expect my company to treat me and give me the accommodations that I need to be the same as everybody else. I expect them to provide them to me. But I expect them to provide it to me because I'm going to be productive. And I'm going to be able to solve those things. And I'm going to be able to do those great things for them when they give them to me. Does that make
Okay,
sense?
yes, yes.
So I am special. So you're going to treat me special. Bottom line. I'm Kristy. I'm not a she. I'm not a ma'am. I'm Kristy. I don't identify myself as a female or a male or a widget, right? I'm Kristy. I'm not anybody else. So as soon as you phrase it like that and you say, this is who I am, I'm not like her, I'm not like him, I'm not like that widget. I am me.
Right.
That's how I phrase it. And I also phrase it on, I'm going to solve your issues, and I look at that company's environment, right? So, like right now, I'm going to use Elton because it's IIS. Lots of cybersecurity stuff going on. If you Google Raytheon, right? Like if you're gonna interview for Raytheon, what you do is you Google the heck out of it, right? What is their problems? What do they need? And then I tell them, you know what? You got some problems with cybersecurity, right? And I'm a cyber engineer. I can help solve your problems. But you know what? I have PTSD, and so I'm going to need these accommodations to help solve your problems. And oh, by the way, I have this degree over here, right? And my GPA may not be a 4.0, and these are the reasons why they're not a 4.0. But you know what? The reason why I can guarantee that I'm going to be successful at your company is because of this, this, and this. I've solved this. I'm a system integrator. I'm a change agent because of this. Right? Mm-hmm. And you use that to your advantage. Because I can guarantee you most people aren't going to.
Right.
They're not going to be authentic, and they're not going to tell you, and they're not going to tell that customer or that company that you are going to solve their problems. And most people, like my current, use Wikipedia. Find out what that job title actually really means before going in there and interviewing for it. Right? Like configuration management. I'm gonna say this. Configuration management, right? Google it. What is configuration management? Half the time when someone goes in there to interview what configuration management is, they don't even know how to spell configuration management. Google it. Wikipedia it. Know what it is before you print it out. Bring it into your interview. Show them that you did the research before you got there. Right? Make sure you know what company it is. Make sure you know that if you're going to go to Ford, right? Make sure you know that that's an automotive, right? And it's not an aeronautics, right? Make sure you know what company you're. Make sure you know what's going on.
Thank you. Okay, next up, we're going to ask Elton Ogar to come up and speak. He's the Director of Diversity Inclusion for IS Division of Raytheon. It's been his current position since 2012. And since we're kind of a little out of the schedule here and he's an expert on Raytheon, we thought we'd let him come up and talk a little bit about the company in general.
No, I don't need a laptop, and this will be brief because I know our speakers are much more interesting than anything I have to say. But if we could again give Kristy another round of applause. You know, I think one of the things that was interesting in what she said was that she was thankful that Raytheon picked her. The reality is, it's us at Raytheon are thankful that you pick us, and you pick us every day, and you make us better. I think she's definitely an inspirational speaker in what she shares. You know, one of the things I often coach our leaders about is around being vulnerable, right? Too often, we're afraid to be vulnerable, and it's hard to follow individuals who aren't vulnerable because they don't seem real. Every time I interact with Kristy, I see someone who is real. And I think it speaks to the company. It speaks directionally to where we're trying to go around our talent. Are we perfect? We're nowhere near perfect, right? But you know, that willingness to take a look at the things that we need to do to get better, hopefully will allow us to attract, you know, the talent that's here at UTD and to attract more Kristys to the organization. You know, I had a mentor who told me a long time ago that if you think you can, you're right. If you think you can't, you're right. And the one thing I noticed in how she answered the questions, it was always that I think I can, I think I can, I think I can, right? Never I can't, right? And that's also a very powerful message. You know, as a company, when we think about diversity and inclusion and how it's shifted over time, you know, we do start to have more conversations around what does being inclusive means. And I think where we land is that if you get the inclusion piece right, the diversity will come. And what that requires is being in a room and asking individuals, what do they think? And trying to get away from, we've always done it this way. And I know for me, in the rooms that I've been in, I've seen more and more of that in terms of the organization, asking our employees, what do you think? And asking them to provide input into helping us find solutions. We have 9 employee resource groups at Raytheon, and we have employees who raise their hands and take on leadership roles and interact with senior leaders with our employee resource groups. I've always said the employee resource groups provide a pulse to what's going on with the organization, and I still believe that to be true. My ask for those of you who are here, as you interact with our company, as you interact with our talent acquisition professionals, really poke and prod, right? She gave so many really good nuggets in terms of assessing what your next steps are. Really poke and prod and ask those questions. You know, as we're interviewing you, you interview us, right? Help us think about how we can be better, how we can do things differently. I'm excited about the relationship we have with UTD. You know, Jeff here, for many years, has been in close partnership, and my hope, and maybe should I say expectation, is that it continues to grow. You know, and my ask is that, you know, continue to push us to be the type of company that really builds on its inclusive strategy, and continue to push us to be the type of company that provides, you know, solutions in the future. So with that, I'll turn it back over and thank you for being here.
All right, so we're going to go ahead and take our break, about 5 minutes, and we'll try and get back and get going a little bit more on schedule. So thank you.